Greetings and welcome to Pop's Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy, joining me is Pops, and today we're going to be talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, episode, I don't know, is it 6 or 7? Just Jen.
Yeah. 6.
Yeah.
Just Jen. Yes, welcome everybody. Get your coffee. Although, try cold coffee because it might be quick. I don't know. We'll see how it works out. Okay. Your mom brought a thought to the table the other day when we were watching it.
Okay.
And I thought I would ask you the question and see what you thought.
Okay.
What do you think that their target audience group is? Good question, huh?
Yeah. I would say probably middle-aged white woke women.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually thought maybe a little younger.
No.
You don't think?
No. I mean, Ms. Marvel, I think, was for younger women.
But
And
this is definitely, you think, middle-aged?
yeah, like, women who have, 3 fur babies and are drinking a copious amount of wine to actually find this show funny.
Yeah, your mother actually, I was leaning towards satire, but your mom said absurdity would be the answer, I think.
It's beyond satire at this point. It's like it's like you can't explain how bad this show is by just incompetence. Like they actually have to they are making conscious choices to make this show the worst thing that Marvel has put out ever.
Yes, and it's really become, you know me, I'm trying to stay positive
Yeah.
and watch it just for what it is, but I'm really struggling to do that.
Because it's not made for entertainment. It's made to push an agenda, and it's made to it's make particularly this episode is about how to demonize your critics and create straw men that don't even really reflect what's actually going on. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but you have that, and then on the A story is just how many ways can we profane the covenant of marriage? How can we do that?
I took great offense to that. As you say, we first again more humiliation for Jen, and this time it's just Jen that gets the humiliation, I think. Little She-Hulk, but not that much. But the absurdity of I couldn't ever believe that you would ask somebody to be your bridesmaid, number one, not give them a +1, and then all the little stupid things that they ran out of ice, could you do that? The guy's shirts got can you iron the shirts? We just know you're that, like, really.
I mean, that's actually happens more often than you think it does. But it has to go back to like how our culture completely profanes marriage. Number one, the culture really isn't clear about what marriage actually is, and then number two, it has moved away from a covenant, which is what it's supposed to be, to a sentimentality. It's moved to sentimentality, and it's all about making me happy, and what can I get out of this? And if it's not working out, then maybe I'm better off walking into oncoming traffic, which goes to the B story.
Yes, which again, another lawsuit. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh. So I didn't know which part I thought was more absurd, the wedding itself. But I guess, like you said, I guess some of those jokes actually happen in
Yeah,
reality.
there's several reality shows. I'm thinking of Bridezilla being one of them. How just like how completely um some women make their wedding day as like a core part of their identity, and if it doesn't go perfect, um they lose their mind, and all that reality TV show kind of makes a bunch of drama. um yeah.
Well, do you think that that type of drama changes the uh, way people look at marriage
I mean that's
because
that
they're seeing it in a reality show?
I mean that's probably part of it. I think really what it goes back to is that, I mean, there's a couple of different things. I mean, the first one is that, we changed marriage from a covenant to just kind of an agreement. That kind of happened, I think, gradually. So, there's more focus on romantic love, when for the norm was, it was more about committing to each other, and it's deeper than just romantic love. That's part of it, but it's not the thing it terminates on. And I think that's kind of what is the undergirding of why how things started going wrong. But then I think the real big thing was, no fault divorce becoming essentially universal in the country. That's the other part, is that, marriage now all of a sudden is a lot more easy to get out of, and so folks trivialize it even more. And then obviously the absolute down part was Obergefell, where the Supreme Court doesn't even know what marriage actually is. And so, for our listeners, if you really want to know, we thankfully have a really good uh, explanation on how Jesus Christ, the Son of God, second person of the Holy Trinity, he knows exactly what marriage is. If you could read it in Matthew 19, that would be much better use of your time than watching this episode. Read
I
Matthew
would
19.
I would agree wholeheartedly. I can say we are coming up very soon on our wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Would be our 42nd,
Mm-hmm.
and your wife's mother and father just celebrated their 46th, right? I think it was. But we come from a time
Mm-hmm.
where uh, it happened, but it was less than it is nowadays, that couples actually live together out of wedlock.
Sure.
I flat out refused to live with your mother
Yeah.
before we were married.
Right.
To me, I was making that commitment.
Yeah. That's.
And that has, like you said, over the years, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, gotten less and less. And now, quite, there's a large percentage that aren't even married and living together,
Right. Right.
And I don't know whether it's not wanting to make the commitment, or if they're, I don't know the reasons why they changed the way. I mean, because I feel like I set a decent example for my children. So, I would hope that your mother also
Well,
set an example,
it's a
but
it's a belief thing. I think mostly that, again, marriage has been trivialized, and that's part of it. But the other part of it is that you have, um, for folks who don't believe that there was a transcendent God who set the standard for marriage, um, it doesn't really surprise me that, unless you have, so like that's kind of like the big thing. Like if someone is left to their own devices and they don't have any belief, I mean, why would you expect them to get married in the first place? But then secondarily, that then if you live in a society that also rejects that, then it's going to make things even worse. Because like you could be an unbeliever, but if you lived in a society that does still honor marriage and has very protective laws around it, which is, you know, one of God's blessings. Marriage is a blessing, and the laws around it that are in the Old Testament actually, I think, are a blessing as well. It provides protection for women, and it also um, uh, lays a framework for provision as well for women and children. So we're just, yeah, it's and the thing that gets me about this particular episode, right, is that like it's about a wedding. She's at the wedding, and I had to ask Tracy to see if I missed it, but there was no actual wedding ceremony at all in the episode, right?
No, there was not. No.
So it's about a wedding, but there's no wedding. What, again, this, like I said, I think this is the worst episode of the worst TV show of the worst thing Marvel has done since 2008.
Yes, I would agree with that. And you basically got the before and after, but you didn't get the wedding,
Right.
and it was like I just thought you just trivialize it so much and you make nothing of it,
Yep.
and it's just
Yep.
and then we got to the B story,
Yep.
which was even uh I don't know, what was his name, Mr. Immortal.
Yeah, and he does have a you know, a presence in the Marvel thing. You could see here. This is a crazy part, right? So, like back in the late '80s, you had the West Coast Avengers were kind of like, you know, the B level superheroes, like, you know, kind of the rejects, kind of get pushed over to the West Coast Avengers, and then
Yeah.
Mr. Immortal steals the Avengers name to make a franchise, and they become the Great Lakes Avengers. So, like, this is a ripoff of the ripoff. That's how bad it is. So yeah, this is Mr. Immortal. You can see, you know, with his Great Lake Avengers, you know, trying to stop a bank robbery. Yeah,
But that's not Mr. Fantastic, is it?
no, that's Flat Man.
Flat Man.
Just so stupid. So this is the thing that gets me, because this to me is actually this pours salt in the wound, because again, you know, like I said, if you wanted your time would be better spent reading Matthew 19. Your time would also be better spent reading the Mr. Immortal storyline for this West Coast Avengers that was out in 1989. Number one is illustrated by John Byrne, so it's really nice. But the other part of it is that this is actually funny, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
you
A
know,
ripoff of a ripoff.
right? And then the storyline is that Clint has to go confront them, saying, "Hey, you know, you're stealing our name and everything." So you've got Hawkeye over here confronting them towards the end of the book, you know, and just him fighting Mr. Immortal, and it's just, you know, to me, I think this is like way funnier, and um, yeah, it's hilarious. I mean, to me, this is like this is what She-Hulk should be, right? Things like this, not this whatever it is. So anyway,
I'm going to ask you one little question. Do you think this became the worst episode because there were no cameos?
no, no, it didn't have to make any cameos in order to make it the worst. What made it the worst is, you know, we talked about it. It's a wedding episode without an actual freaking wedding. It's you know, Mr. Immortal taking that hero, which, you know, actually was kind of funny to begin with. I think John Byrne did an amazing job introducing him, and then taking the marriage side of things and how he trivializes marriage as well. Um, you know, that's bad. And then the last part, which is the icing on the cake of how terrible this episode is that we get introduced to this internet message board called Intelligentsia that is
Yes.
anti She-Hulk, and they're giving her death threats or whatever. And really, I think that's supposed to be a meta commentary around the critics of She-Hulk, which I count myself among them.
Yes.
we're not hating her because she's a woman. We're not giving her death threats. Those that I believe, and the statistics and the studies point this out, that men actually suffer a significant amount more harassment online than women do, and the only reason why women, because they're louder about it, and that's why you hear it. So that's number one, and then number two is that the reason why we're criticizing this has nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman. You know, we were very favorable to Ms. Marvel. We were even more favorable to Hawkeye. None of that had anything to do with it, right? It's just the fact that this is clearly bad television,
It's
and
not well written.
well, even the stories are terrible. I mean,
Yes.
I have to say, from a pacing perspective, they do an okay job. Like, they know how to make these self-contained episodes, and um, you're not trying to think of the right word. You don't. It doesn't feel. It feels well paced, even though they're short. But the problem is that the stories they're telling are absolute garbage. And again, they have so much they can draw from to make it better, but they don't. And to me, it's because they're more concerned about pushing an agenda than they are about telling a story.
Right. Whatever story they're trying to tell, it is not something that has any substance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I I don't know what to say. I mean, when it gets to the point where even your mother doesn't, we're watching it just because we're doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not a show that we would choose to watch
Agreed.
on purpose,
Yeah, I would never.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad because um, the actress that plays Jen,
Uh huh.
I really love some of her work. She's done some really, really good acting stuff.
Yeah.
And this is just so far below her
Right.
that
Yeah. It's the same thing with Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. The same thing. It's like, she's not a bad actress. She's just completely miscast. And I think that, let me just do this real quick while I think really it sums it up. There's this guy named Clifton Duncan, and obviously he's talking about a different TV show that we haven't even broached yet, which I don't think we ever will, but it's fine. But this is the take, right? Audiences don't hate diverse characters. What they hate is being slammed for bigots for rejecting bad work from pretentious, unskilled activists posing as writers. If the demography of your characters becomes more important than the story, your story will probably suck, right? I'm
yes,
obviously he's talking about Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, or whatever, which is a whole nother kettle of fish that I refuse to even engage in. But
I haven't
in
even thought about watching it.
at the end of the day, that's really what it is, because that is the intelligentsia site. They hate her because she's a woman. No, we hate you because you suck. Simple
The
as that.
show, the
Simple as.
show.
Simple as.
I think that if they had not put forth an agenda and they decided that they were going to do a show. Now, Marvel has done many things where they've chose to, like the Netflix series for Daredevil
Mm-hmm.
was based off of Frank Miller's, series of Daredevil comics, right?
Uh,
Basically,
First season, yeah.
yes.
Second season, there was a little bit from a couple of their writers, but
But the thing is that they had a pattern to follow and they chose to follow it. I don't
I
know,
suppose.
I don't think that they even really got close to that in this series,
Yeah, but
like you said.
you can definitely have an agenda in a story, but it has to be a well told story. A perfect example of this is, I want to say, the one that does it best, I think, is Winter Soldier, where you have really what it boils down. Oh, I guess Civil War is kind of like in the same vein, where it's like, do you trade your freedom for security? things like that. I mean, obviously there's a very clear, at least in Winter Soldier, there's a clear message saying that, hey, having all this control over the world is actually a bad thing, and we need to reject that. Same thing with um, Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it was also the same thing: globalism bad, essentially. Those are the baddies. Um, so I think you can do it well, and I think you can also do it almost good, which is Black Panther. I think is the one that's almost good. Really the idea is that can you be a nationalist country without having it devolve into racism? And and you could see how quickly the pendulum swung on that, um, which is really interesting, right? So that's the other one where
Yes.
I think you could tell a good story, even if there's a couple points where I think where it really uh, got snarled up.
Yes.
But
Yes.
again, we're talking about better movies at this point, not talking about the actual movie we're supposed to be talking about right now.
Yes.
But the point being is that I know there is the myth of neutrality. There's no neutral point. I get it. At the same time, these folks are terrible at telling these stories, and it's this is the worst, I think. But I haven't seen the Eternal, so I can't confirm that's the actual worst.
Right. Well, you know what? I guess the next time we meet, I'll have to bring the
You don't
Eternals.
have to. It's on Disney Plus. You don't have to.
Well, we are going to have to review that someday.
I know.
And I know you're holding out as long as possible before we start phase 4. But uh, we'll have to do some more consideration. The next Marvel movie is comes out in November, is it?
Your
The
birthday.
Black Panther movie?
Yep, your birthday.
Yes,
Wakanda
Black
forever.
Panther. Yeah, so and I'm not sure if it sounds like, and from what I've seen, sounds like it's going to be more Love and Thunder type
I don't know.
than
I don't know about that. I think it's going to be different. I don't know if it's going to be good. I want it to be good, but the problem is now that like I have way too unrealistic expectations of what the movie should be in order to save the MCU. Because honestly, at this point, they need something to save the MCU. It is right now head underwater. It is drowning, and really, my hopes are Quantumania can fix a lot of this, but we'll see. But at the end of the day, I don't think it. Wakanda Forever should not have that expectation put upon them, because the first Black Panther movie again was good, but we weren't expecting it to be a Civil War or Winter Soldier or something like that. It was just a good Marvel movie,
story.
like
Yes,
like Ant-Man. Ant-Man's you don't have expectations that are completely up here because it's Ant-Man, and if you don't have those expectations, those movies are delightful. So
yes,
that's
I would agree with that.
so I'm trying.
Well,
What?
we didn't have you didn't have any expectations with She-Hulk, did you?
No,
So it's lived up to your expectations.
it's like I had no expectations and I was still disappointed. How's that?
You're absolutely right. And uh, for our audience, there are 3 more episodes.
Yeah.
So we can always hope that it will get better. I don't know, but like I said, we can always hope.
Yeah, I don't have any hope.
No, none
No,
whatsoever.
I'm just here.
Well,
I'm just here for the the crash, the car crash.
yes, okay. Well, we'll see how that works out. Um,
I think
and
I do think that Matt Murdock might get the Love and Thunder treatment if that's the case. It's
I
probably
hope
worse.
not. I so hope
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Um,
It doesn't need to be. I don't know. We'll talk about it when he actually shows up.
yes, which may not be till the episode 9.
It could be. Yeah.
We don't know.
Yep.
So uh we'll just have to see how it works out. Well, is there any other thing that you would like to bash before we close out this episode?
No, like I said, for I've been saying this is that basically what needs to happen is they need to refocus towards good storytelling as opposed to um, trying to pick people to tell stories based on
An agenda.
not just an agenda, but just because they have a certain if they tick boxes from demographics that they want to include. It's like it's it's suffering because of it. And honestly, if you want to bring back good storytellers, you're going to have to hire the good storytellers no matter what they look like, or you know it's just not going to
Yes,
work.
or their point of views. Because we do live in a country where you can believe what you can believe. You don't necessarily have to believe what that other person's agenda is. And you could tell a good story without having to flood that agenda into the story. You could do it in a way that adds it, but not to a point of, you know, a spewed out flood, type of thing.
Well, there's a way to do it, and there's a way to not do it. It's like like I said, clearly there were agendas in a lot of the other films, but it was different than this one. So it's just bad.
Yes. Well, let's hope that maybe the writing gets better, but I'm pretty sure this series is already done and they're just letting it out episode by
Oh
episode.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, I have to tell you that I purchased this DC series, TV series called Naomi.
Okay,
One, and it was one season.
okay,
I believe it probably had to do with rumors that the CW was being sold.
okay.
But your mom and I watched it, and your mom said um, after we watched it that, it was a good story.
Uh-huh.
Why would they cancel something like that? And yet something like She-Hulk was,
Or Batwoman.
probably going to, yeah, or Batwoman was going to continue. Well, Batwoman, thankfully, is over with.
Yeah, but
Three seasons.
it lasted 3 seasons too long. Right.
Well,
Yes, 3 seasons too long.
two
It should not even
two and a
happen.
half seasons too long. You know, they probably started with a not good idea, but they totally trashed it by episode 3. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, okay, so that's it for this week. We don't know the name of episode 7 yet.
No.
And so when we see you next week, you will know. And if you are watching it and you're actually enjoying it, we would love to hear from you and let us know what you're enjoying about it. Uh, you know,
Okay.
maybe you could open up our eyes. I don't know.
Uh, anyway.
Anyways,
All
that's
right.
it for now, I think.
Yep. All right. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. God bless.
Bye. God bless. Tell your friends.